All right. We are live. Championship Wednesday at the Maui Invitational in Hawaii. A great day yesterday of semifinals. We talked about it here. We broke it down. I think we got one game that was maybe not of the quality that everybody would have been looking for, but had the competitiveness, and then a second game that went maybe I wouldn't say very against according to plan, since I think we knew it'd be a competitive game, but definitely more one-sided in the direction than we would have expected. We'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about what we've got coming up here in the next, I guess, hour or so. We'll get Maui going again. Plus, we got Battle Atlantis is underway. Feast week just rolls on. Hunter, how are we feeling?
Feeling good. Great day of basketball yesterday. That Kansas Marquette game definitely coming as a bit of a surprise. But again, like we've been high on the Big East, and once again, a Big East team goes out and handles business in an impressive way. Tennessee Purdue game, bit of a clunker. Game was a little too big for those refs. Kind of let it get away from them. What were there? 72 free throws in that game.
I think it might have been like 76 or something. We'll talk about it. But yeah, yeah, let's actually just start with that, because I saw a lot of the tweets. I saw a lot of I guess the big college media, entities and people talking about how terrible it was and how bad it is for the sport and all these fouls and how the refs, were terrible. And no one hates refs more than me. I have been, since I was a little kid playing rec league, I've always been upset with officials, gotten a fair share of technicals in my basketball career. No one wants to be quicker to point the fingers at the refs than me. Hunter, I saw a game where there was fouls on every single possession, and I think you could have fouled out every player on the floor. Tennessee plays a physical game. I think Purdue matched him. For me, I think that was just a tough situation for any official to work with.
Yeah, there were some people at the game that were saying that like it was a clunker of a game. There's a foul every 47 seconds or something crazy, but like the game was that physical and the players were swiping that much that it's kind of on the players to adjust if the game's being called in that way. But yeah, like no one's getting through screens cleanly. No one's driving to the rim without getting checked. Just such a physical game. Tennessee is so physical. And Purdue matched their physicality. So good on Purdue for doing that. Their guards are undersized. They lack a bit of athleticism. But good on Purdue for being able to fight through that adversity, fight through that physicality, and come out with the win.
Yeah, and it was 78 total free throws in that game yesterday. Purdue shoots 29 of 48 from the line. They missed 19 free throws, and they win the game by 4. So I think Purdue was the better team here. I think they played the better game, and I think they deserved the number of free throws attempts that they were getting, because if you're Tennessee, it was a little bit, for me, a disappointing performance from Tennessee. I think what we talked about going into the game for them, we've talked a couple times about them this season, is we were hoping to see a more offensive-oriented Tennessee team get the ball to Dalton Connect, and they did start the game that way. They were getting the ball to Connect. He got off to a great start. We were texting his Connect a lottery pick, just with how pure he is from three and his ability to go down the lane. He had a nice little tip jam in that sequence, but it kind of was same old Tennessee for me in the second half, where it became just a matter of, can we, grab these guys, hold these guys, try to make this a football game, and hope that works out for us in the end. And to your point, Purdue matched that physicality, but also continued to run their offense. A fantastic game for Fletcher Lawyer, who struggled against Gonzaga. He scores 27 points on only 3 of 10 3-point shooting, but he gets to the line 11 times, and he, of the Purdue players, does convert 10 of 11 of those. I tweeted about it, and we talked about him yesterday. Lance Jones on the stat line is not going to show up. He statistically had a poor performance, but his ability to lock up Dalton Connect in that second half, I think, was big for Purdue as well. And he looks like that missing piece on the physicality side that maybe Purdue hasn't had in recent seasons.
Yeah, just a big get from the transfer portal, coming over from Southern Illinois. Two-way player, electric on both ends. He gets up and down the court. It seems like he kind of like opens up Purdue's offense a little bit. Like he's a bit more free-flowing, a bit more willing to take shots early in the clock, and then also just get out and run. But yeah, you mentioned it. Did a great job denying Dalton Connect the ball. When Tennessee is not getting Connect the ball, they struggle to score. And this Tennessee team has struggled to score in the past, and these guards are great defensively. They get into their sets, but with Vescovy, with Ziegler, Josiah Jordan James, Adu, it's just such a defensively minded team that I don't know. Like Purdue should have beat them by 10, 15 with how many times they got to the free throw line. So I'm right there with you. A pretty disappointing performance from the Volunteers.
Yeah, for me, even you don't want to judge it too much on one game. We'll talk about them against Kansas here, and that's the great thing, as we said before the week about Maui, is that even these non-championship games are of the highest quality. We'll
Yep.
see how they perform against Kansas, but for me, based on what I've seen from some of the other teams in the SEC, I'm not sold. I don't think on Tennessee as my choice right now. Again, we saw Auburn a couple weeks ago for me, and there's Mississippi State, and there's Kentucky and Alabama and Arkansas. Like, you need to have a complete roster this year to win in the SEC, and obviously Tennessee's going to have a good season. But it was the first big test of, is this offense going to be the level that it needs to be to compete for a Final Four and a championship? And we did not see that. They go 8 of 30 from the 3-point line. We've talked about the rims. We finally do get the over in this Purdue Tennessee game, but it required 78 free throws to get there. The 3-point shots just don't fall for Tennessee, and Purdue is a deserving winner there. And I thought the discourse after the game being so focused on the physicality and the refs took away from the fact that people talk about Purdue being soft. People talk about Purdue not being a big game team. What do you want from them? They win the game, and they probably should have won by more there.
Yeah. What the unders are now 7-1 in Maui. So it's the tightest rims we've seen.
It honestly 7-1, and we nailed the lone over in that stretch, which I'll give myself a pat on the back for that, because when it was 6 straight unders going into me picking the over in the Purdue game, I was like, this has no chance. But luckily the refs were there to bail me out, and we should have cleared the over by 20 with how many free throws there were. Yep. But those rims, they continued to challenge us till the end. The other semifinal, the Kansas versus Marquette game. We talked about it ahead of time. We said this Kansas team has not given us 40 minutes of basketball yet this year, and they do not give us 40 minutes of basketball again this game. They fall behind, and KenPom has it broken down in quarters, which actually is kind of a nice way to look at it here. They're down 25-16 after the opening 10 minutes. The game ends up being relatively close. Marquette wins the rest of the game by 6 points. So it was that opening 10 minutes that kind of sets the tone there. We talked about DeJuan Harris. I don't want to get on him too much because I love a pass first point guard. I love a guy who's running the offense, and especially on this Kansas team when you've got Kevin McCullough and you've got Hunter Dickinson, that's certainly the mindset you want for your point guard. But the man doesn't look at the bat. He's not looking to score, and Kansas doesn't have the depth. They really only have 5 guys. Like, there's nothing off the bench for them right now. You can't have your point guard, the guy with the ball who's playing 36 minutes, being clearly not a threat to score.
Yeah, DeJuan Harris is an incredible facilitator, an incredible defender, but he really just wasn't looking for a shot at all. And I know that shooting threes isn't what he does best, but when you look at that game where they beat Kentucky, he knocked down 5 threes. And last year they had a lot more shooters. I mean, especially like Grady Dick behind the 3-point line. This year, they just don't have those shooters, and I think they're going to need him to be willing. He doesn't need to knock down 5 threes a game, but he needs to be willing to take 5 threes a game, because that softens up the defense, that softens up the interior, playing through Hunter Dickinson inside out. If he can knock down 2 for 5 a game, 2 for 4, that would be huge for this offense, because, Kansas is just lacking the shooters. Even like Kevin McCullough, you look at Dickinson, McCullough, and DeJuan Harris. Kansas is going to go as those 3 go. McCullough is a great 2-way player, got a triple-double in the first game of the tournament, but he's also not a pure shooter. So Kansas really is lacking that outside shot that has made Bill Self teams so good in prior years.
Yeah, and you saw the athleticism and the physicality, I guess not physicality, more the athleticism and speed of Marquette, with McCullough had 6 turnovers and Dickinson had 5 turnovers. So that kind of free-flowing Kansas offense, just the guys were getting in the passing lanes. They were getting steals, and our guy, Oso Ighodaro, he, to me, has been the best player in this tournament. He's been the player to me that has really caught my attention. I said before this game yesterday, I took Marquette plus 4.5, but that was more because I had some doubts about Kansas, and I even said I'm not sure if I have faith in this Marquette team. It doesn't matter to me what they do this season. I'm going to judge Shaka Smart. I'm going to judge Marquette in March, as we talked about at the beginning of the season. But I'm impressed by Marquette, and Ighodaro is really, for me, they've got a variety of good players, but he's the one who's really jumped out to me and has me believing in Marquette in a way that I didn't going into this week.
Yeah, Ighodaro, just incredible on the defensive end. He's a pogo stick jumper. One big thing is he's added that like push shot floater in the paint to his game. And between his athleticism, like if he's willing to knock that down from 8 to 10 feet, and then you have to come out on that, and he can take one dribble and get to the rim on you, he's a really difficult guy to defend. And he's got to be moving up draft boards. Like he's taken such a big leap from last year. And last year he had flashes just with his athleticism, but the skill that he's added, still not a great free throw shooter. I think he shoots at like 46%. So making 1 out of 2, but he looks so good last night. And now he's gone toe to toe with Adem Bona and then Hunter Dickinson,
yeah.
and he's got the best of both of them. So I can't wait to see him today against Edie.
Yeah, and we'll get to that game in a minute because it's a very interesting matchup there. And I think for you look at this Marquette team, obviously they've got Tyler Kolek. He continues so far in the first 2 games of this tournament to be more of a facilitator than a scorer, but we know he can score the basketball as well. Cam Jones starts that game hitting a couple threes. He ends up actually going 2 of 9, but the 2 that he hit out of the gates kind of got the ball rolling for Marquette. And then you've got Sean Jones, who was 4 for 4, all layups. He's just getting to the rim. He's quick. He's breaking down guys off the dribble. They just have a roster. I can't even think of another team I've seen so far this year with so many weapons on the offensive end that they can, when we saw it against UCLA, it can be going wrong for extended periods for Marquette, but boom, 10-0 run, boom, quick 8 points. Like they've just got the offensive weapons that I don't think a lot of teams in college basketball have.
Yeah, Sean Jones is just your prototypical Shaka Smart guy. Like, seems like a guard that belongs on those VCU teams because he just wreaks havoc. He gets up on you on the defensive end. He gets out in transition, and like he is one of the quickest players in all of college basketball. I love that move yesterday where he dribbled around the rim, faked out, came back for the layup. Like he's an electric player. Just such a great piece for them off the bench. Behind Kolek and Cam Smith.
Yeah, so the semifinals go. I think you picked Marquette to make the final before the week.
Yep.
You turned on them last night and went with Kansas, but your
I did. I should have stuck with my guns.
Yeah, sticking with your guns there. You had faith in Marquette. So we've got Purdue Marquette in the final. But first, let's just go in the order of the games here in Maui. The first one actually is going to tip off at 2:30. They've got the 3rd, 4th place game here. So that's going to be Tennessee and Kansas by itself. A fantastic matchup if you remove the fact that it's for 3rd, 4th place. This is a game that really matters for both of these teams in the sense that they've come down to Maui now, and you're either going to leave 1 and 2 or you're going to leave 2 and 1, and a big opportunity for both teams. Let's get to the lines here.
I think it's 1.5.
Yeah, Tennessee plus 1.5, Kansas -1, over unders. They're finally starting to adapt to it's over 138.5 and the unders 140. And a half. That was the interesting thing. Like all these unders have also been on really high totals, like in the 150s. The only over came on the one that was the 132.5. So those are finally looking like they're adapting today because the ball's just not going into the hoop. I don't really know how else to describe it. Let's just let's see if there's any stat trends here. Yeah, I don't know. How do you see this game? I got to think about it for a second.
I think it's going to be a physical game. I think it's going to come down to if Kansas can match Tennessee's physicality. I think Kansas is going to look to get out and run and get ahead of that physicality, get ahead of that defense. I still think you got to look at the under here. Like it's at 141.5, I believe. I just don't see any team scoring 35 points in both halves against this Tennessee defense, unless the game gets out of hand with all the foul calls again. But yeah, I'd be looking at the under -141.5. Tennessee's just defending, and they have not shown anything on the offensive end that gets me going, especially when I don't even know who Kevin McCullough is going to guard. Oh, Dalton Knecht probably. So if Kevin McCullough can negate Dalton Knecht and you're going to put it on the shoulders of those guards, I mean, Tennessee's big men can't score straight up. So it comes down to their guards, taking threes. And as we've seen, you're not getting a friendly roll on these rims.
Yeah, I think, and this was my initial lean when I saw this line earlier. I wanted to check the stats quickly, but give me the Kansas -1 here. I think they're still the clear better team between these two teams. They didn't play great last night, and they still haven't given us that 40 minutes of basketball that I want to see out of them. But I hope last night was a wake-up call. You saw actually Bill Self took out DeJuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson with like 2:30 left in the game. It was probably over. It was like a 12, 13-point game, but DeJuan Harris was pretty upset about that. I think he wanted to keep fighting, and who knows? But to me, that's Bill Self kind of saying, play 40 minutes of basketball so that we don't have to make these miracle comebacks in the second half. Kansas is the better team here. The Tennessee didn't show me enough in how they guarded Edey to give me confidence that they're going to be able to stop Dickinson. Like their strategy is let's just foul him on every single possession. And one thing that Dickinson has that even Edey doesn't is that really grab the ball quick, put it up. He kind of catches it, keeps it high, and just tosses it in from like 4 to 8 feet. I think he's going to get a lot of those looks tonight, especially if he wants to not have to deal with all the physicality, pop out a little bit further and make some of those mid-range shots. I think Kansas here should be favored by a little bit more than the -1.
Yeah, that's one of the best things that Dickinson does is he catches it high and keeps it high, especially when he's on that right block and can get to his right shoulder with the left hand off the glass. He's money from there. Definitely want to hit on what you talked about with Dickinson, McCullough, and DeJuan Harris getting pulled. I think they were down 13 with 2.5 left. Which like the game's pretty much over, but I don't know. In college basketball, like you go 3-stop-3, you cut that to 7, you put some game pressure on. I think Marquette was still in the 1-and-1. So it was a bit surprising, but yeah, I think it was a bit of a statement from Bill Self that like, you got to earn your minutes and you don't just get to be out there because you're a starter. So that was definitely something. How about Bill Self? Like every time they showed him after a turnover, he just looked like flabbergasted with his team. Like he couldn't believe the performance that the Jayhawks were putting up. So I like them in a bounce back spot. I'll be with you on the -1.5 there.
Yeah, and we get the -1 on our set, so that's nice. We don't even need the if you're out there, you want to bet Tennessee and can't get that extra half point on BetMGM. And we didn't even talk about the little kerfuffle between Shaka Smart and Bill Self there, which was surprising, but I guess maybe not overly surprising. Shaka Smart, a passionate coach, and Bill Self one of the calmest coaches and like always rather calm looking, but we know the fire inside of
it kind of looked like Kevin McCullough might have said something to Shaka Smart, and then Shaka Smart said something back to Kevin McCullough. And I think it's like an unwritten rule in basketball that like, 1, you don't talk to the opposing coach, but 2, the opposing coach definitely doesn't talk to the opposing players. So I think Bill Self took some exception to that. But when you looked at it, like Kevin McCullough definitely turned around and said something to the bench or Shaka Smart. I don't know what he said to get Shaka that fired up, but like Shaka was having to get held back by his own players. I'm kind of surprised it was just a double offsetting technical, given you had like a benches clearing beat up at center court with guys getting held back. But I don't hate it from the refs. Like diffuse the situation, move along. Don't need to make it bigger than it was.
And then there was nothing really else the rest of the game. And to be fair, like Cam Jones hit a 3 on like the second possession of the game.
Yeah,
turned he was
around.
Like in the bench. So
Steph Curry.
Yeah, so I think McCullough might have been maybe doesn't do that if Cam Jones doesn't do it. So hard to point fingers on whose fault or what was going on there. Everything ends up being okay in the end. But yeah, give me Kansas today. I think they I still can't trust them to play 40 minutes of basketball, but I think they have the offensive deficiency that Tennessee can't match. And over 40 minutes, I think Kansas comes out on top in this one. So that one will get going here in about an hour. And then after that, it is the championship. So they've got the order of the games a little bit mixed up today, but it makes sense why they're doing that. They want the big games to be on for as many people as possible here the day before Thanksgiving. And as we have said, that is Purdue and that is Marquette. The lines here, it's coming. I believe it started at 4.5, and now we've got Purdue -3, Marquette +3.5. And over under again in that 140.5 to 142 range. There's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, I think, to break down here. You've got the size of Edey, who to me, it's not fun to necessarily watch him play, but he's literally unstoppable. Like if they can get the entry pass to him, well, there's nothing you can do. And so far, and again, this goes back to the refs and the fouling in the Tennessee game, the only way you can stop the entry pass is if you're fouling it. So I think that's fascinating. And then it's going to be him against Iguodaro, who just is going to try to cancel that out with athleticism. What do you just give me like a high level how you think this is going to play out?
I think this is going to come down to fouling, to be honest, because if Iguodaro can stay on the floor, I think he can match Edey. But Marquette only goes 8 deep, really, and they bring Ben Gold off the bench as a big man, but he's more of he likes to let it fly from 3. He's not really an interior presence. So I think this whole game is going to come down to if Iguodaro can stay on the floor, because if he picks up 2 quick fouls and they get to Ben Gold, Ben Gold can't guard Zach Edey. And if he picks up fouls, like I just don't know who they turn to. I think that this is going to be a game where Purdue wants to slow it down. They want to get into their sets. They're just going to feed Edey down low. Marquette's going to look to get out and run, get ahead of that defense. An interesting matchup will be Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer against Cam Jones and Tyler Kolek. Braden Smith is kind of he's got the allegations against him that like he can't play against the super athletic guards. He struggles against them, and that's what Marquette's full of, is athletic guards and wings. So I definitely give the advantage to Marquette on the perimeter, but I just worry about inside with the team that only goes 8 deep. It's so hard to defend Zach Edey without fouling, just with how big his body is. Like, if you don't foul him shooting, you'll foul him fighting for a position down low, trying to front him. So I think hopefully the refs can let them play, because I just want to see this matchup played out. But if they get whistle happy, it's definitely in Purdue's favor.
And I mean, outside of Edey, they've still got Trey Kaufman-Renn, who's 6'9" and pretty physical on the interior.
Yep.
They bring Caleb First off the bench when Edey goes out, and he's not anywhere near the offensive like weapon that Edey is, but he's still physical.
He's a good offensive rebounder, though. He really attacks the glass, and that's another place where you can pick up fouls, like trying to block out, or if a guy gets in good position off the offensive glass. So he works hard.
And I think, to your point, in what should obviously be a close and competitive game, there's just a couple data points here that I think give me a lean towards Purdue. On the fouling and the free throw side of things, Purdue doesn't foul. Obviously, last night they racked up a lot of fouls. They still had fewer fouls than Tennessee, and they still won the free throw battle and the total foul battle comfortably. Marquette doesn't really get to the free throw line. They're 234th in the country in free throw attempts for a field goal. They play, as we've talked about, more of a kind of a run and gun slashing style. Like, they're not getting to the line a lot. Purdue's not going to, I think, give them a lot of easy baskets tonight. Marquette also doesn't rebound on the offensive end either. They're 231st in offensive rebounding. We can feel pretty good about Purdue on the glass. And then on the other side of the ball, obviously Purdue's great on the offensive glass. Marquette is 228th defensively in rebounding. I just think there's enough kind of on the margins there, the free throws, the rebounding, that give Purdue the edge. And I think this line is a little bit of a reaction to how good Marquette looked against Kansas, but we're still not fully sold on this Kansas team either. Like, they didn't beat who the actual number one team in the country is. They may be playing the number one team in the country tonight in Purdue. I think the -3 is enough, or is a low enough number for me to stick with the Boilermakers here. I think that's my pick, Purdue -3.
Yeah. Gosh, I worry about the depth so much with Marquette that if I was on a side, I think I'd be on Purdue -3. I did pick Marquette to win it all, but I thought that it was going to be there playing Tennessee and they could get out and run against them. I just worry about, I know that Iguodala is matched up with Bona. I know he's matched up with Hunter Dickinson, but Edey, it's just the fouls that he can put on you. And again, if Iguodala picks up 2 before the 10-minute mark and they got to go to Ben Gold, I think it's going to be a feast down there for Edey. And I mean, Edey showed that he can put 2 fouls on both your bigs in the first half. So I think that's really what it's going to come down to. I'll be on Purdue -3 with you.
And despite we talked about the 3-point shooting against Purdue being a key way that you need to knock down shots to beat them, Tennessee incapable of doing that. And Marquette last night, despite winning comfortably, was 6 of 25 from 3. Like I said, Cam Jones started 2 for 2. He ends up the game 2 for 9. Ben Gold does go 2 for 2, but if they're using Ben Gold a lot tonight, that's problems for Marquette. He can hit a couple of threes, but if Ben Gold's playing more than the 6 minutes that he played last night, that means that Iguodala's in foul trouble and Edey's having a field day on the interior. I like what I saw from Fletcher Lawyer there. I still don't trust Braden Smith a lot, but that's the question mark for me. If Purdue can take care of if Purdue takes care of the basketball, if Purdue has under 14 turnovers, I'll feel good about this bet. If that number first half, we're seeing 8-10 turnovers, then I think things have gone wrong for Purdue. But I think Purdue, if they win this game, solidifies themselves, to me, as probably the number one team in the country. I still am feeling pretty high on Arizona. We haven't seen them play anybody good since they beat Duke. But for me, just based on the, I guess, the eye test, it's Purdue and Arizona and UConn probably right now for me at the top. But Marquette, if Marquette wins this, then they obviously join that conversation as well.
Yeah, if you ask me who the best team in the country is right now, I'd tell you UConn. But if you ask me who should be ranked number 1 deservingly, it's going to be the winner of this game in the Maui Invitational. Just looking at this game, like looking at the 4 factors, Purdue's going to win the offensive rebounding battle. Purdue's going to win the foul battle. So it comes down to your turnovers and your shooting. Marquette's going to need to shoot it well tonight. And then Purdue, if Purdue can protect the basketball, it's just like every possession you can dump it into the post is another possession that you can get fouled and go to the free throw line. So if they can take care of the basketball, definitely -3.
Yeah, and like they just did it against Tennessee. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but like I would see Tennessee as a more dangerous opponent from the physicality standpoint. Marquette is athletic, but I think Purdue runs a clean enough offense and is disciplined enough to deal with guys jumping in passing lanes and trying to jump passes like that. And this, I mean, this Purdue schedule is insane. They've already beaten Xavier, who's 31 in Kent Palm. They beat Gonzaga, who's 8. They just beat Tennessee, who's 7. They play Marquette today, who's 6. They're going to get a couple of. They're going to play Texas Southern before 2 conference games against Northwestern and Iowa, and then they play Alabama and Arizona. Like Matt Painter is unhappy, clearly unhappy with what took place against a 16 seed last year. Purdue's getting their money's worth in this early season, and if they win this, they are 100% deserving of number 1, and they're going to get tested on that a couple more times the rest of this non-conference season. So a fascinating game there. We'll of course have eyes on it, but yeah, so far, give me the favorites in these first 2 games, Kansas and Purdue. I think the numbers are low enough there where I will ride with them, and I think those over-unders have adjusted to the point where I'm not quite comfortable.
Yep, they've
on
come
either of
down.
those. So let's talk about the one more game here. I will not be watching Chaminade against Syracuse.
No.
I survived. I survived Chaminade yesterday. UCLA gets the -28. That was hands down the least fun I've ever had watching a basketball game. You're watching a team who should score a dunk on every single possession or have a wide open 3, turn it over like 20 times. The refs are terrible. Never again. I like to bet games where I think I do my best work in games between competitive opponents where like I know a reasonable amount of teams. I know better than to be betting games where the spreads are -27, but survived it.
Yep, great line by Vegas. Somehow they know. Somehow they knew Chaminade.
Somehow they knew, and the refs seemed to know what the line was in that one as well. But we survived the free throw attempts at the buzzer there and pick up the win. Gonzaga versus UCLA. This is going to be a midnight start, I do believe. And I do. Hopefully, this means we got Bill Walton on the call again, because Bill Walton calling Gonzaga versus UCLA. Sign me up for that. This is West Coast basketball. This is what we live for. Hunter and I, being from the West Coast originally, all be staying up. We've got ourselves Gonzaga -4.5, UCLA +5 available. A lower over under versus those others we talked about, 137.5 to 139. Gonzaga takes care of business against Syracuse. They should have won that game by 40 points. Just, I don't know what Nemhardin is doing, turning the ball over. Mark Few is about, his brain almost exploded out of his head on the sideline the entire second half, but they get the job done. And UCLA, we think Marquette's been the most impressive team so far in this tournament, even though I'm going to go with Purdue in the final. UCLA had them beat. A very interesting matchup here, and I think the 4th time these teams have played in recent years.
Yep, 4 years in a row, Gonzaga's gotten the best of UCLA every single time. Just have been great battles. Remember Jalen Suggs banking in that shot in the tournament to send UCLA packing. I think this is a big game for Gonzaga, just because they just haven't showed well in this tournament. They didn't play well at all in their first game. They come out, they beat Syracuse, but Syracuse is not a tournament team this year. And then they get UCLA, and Gonzaga's got all the experience. They have all the veteran college basketball players, and they're going up against this extremely inexperienced UCLA team. So it's an opportunity to get a good win for 1, but 2, it's like, it's a game that they should win, and they're favored, and it shows that they should win it. If they can't get this one done, I'm not going to be worried about Gonzaga in the WCC. But like every year, Gonzaga's expectations are the Final Four. And this is a game where if you're a Final Four team, you got to go out there and get this win.
And to what I was saying, the turnover situation, it's not good for Gonzaga. They're 249th right now in the country in turnovers. UCLA forces turnovers. They're 66th in the country in forcing turnovers. 3-pointers aren't falling for Gonzaga. They're shooting 28% from the 3-point line. UCLA does a nice job of defending and running people off the 3-point line. And for me, when you look at this kind of on a position by position basis, you've got EK on the inside. I think he's solid, but he's not spectacular to me. I think Bona, I'd give Bona the edge if I had to pick between those two guys. Braden Huff is certainly Gonzaga's best player. His ability to go inside out, to me so far, has been the best thing that Gonzaga has going for them. But I think it gets decided at the guards tonight. and Nemhard and Hickman have the experience. But I really liked what I've seen from Sebastian Mack for
Yeah.
UCLA. He's had a great tournament. To me, he's in the mix for all tournament team if he has a good one out here today. Lazar Stefanovic for UCLA has been solid. He's a good wing player. I'm not sold on some of these other, like I think it's the Turkish guy and the guy from
Oh,
Spain for UCLA.
yeah, the 7'3" guy, like he can't even bend over. There was a loose ball the other day,
Yeah.
and he couldn't even bend over to like pick it up. He's so tall. I mean, he's a freshman, so he might develop, but and then the other guy is Berke. No chance I can say his last name,
Yeah.
from Turkey. This guy that's been playing like Turkish professional ball since he was 14. He just got cleared like the day before the tournament. He has not looked the part, but he's got the size, so you can see maybe what he's able to do. But he has not looked good early. I think one guy that's sneaky good is Dylan Andrews, the point
Yeah.
guard. Like he gets them into their, he's not going to score anything crazy, but he gets them into their sets and he gets people good shots, which is what UCLA basketball is all about.
Yeah, and for that, I'm going to take UCLA +5 here. Like, I think this is a pretty competitive game. Like, I don't even know who I'd pick to win. I'd maybe give the edge to Gonzaga, but if you're going to give me 5 points with UCLA and a Gonzaga team that's just not yet firing on all cylinders, like, again, third time we've talked about it this week, and I guess UCLA has covered both games that they've played so far. Mick Cronin, he's clearly got these guys coached up reasonably well so far out of the gates. Mark Few is a fantastic coach, but it's just not quite clicking for them in this tournament. Give me UCLA, and just also because of the kind of rivalry that's built up between these teams over the last, it's almost every game's been really competitive. So if I can get 5 points with UCLA, I'll take it. But this Gonzaga team they've got the piece. Like, you can see what they're trying to do here. It just hasn't quite worked out yet.
Yeah, for sure.
So that will sum up the Maui Invitational. We'll have a champion tonight. We'll have a winner in the Tennessee-Kansas game. We'll have a probably what will end up being a quad 1 win for either Gonzaga or UCLA at the end of the season. Honestly, all three of these will be quad 1 wins for these teams come March. So it's been a fantastic Maui Invitational. I think we're set up for a great day of basketball here, and it's going to get going in about an hour with that Tennessee and Kansas game. And the other kind of marquee tournament, or it's been increasingly, it used to always just be Maui Invitational for me, but over recent years, this battle for Atlantis has become probably the consistent second best tournament. I don't think it's as good as it has been in recent years, but Battle for Atlantis, we've got that really dark gym. It's
Yep.
always really dark in the Battle for Atlantis.
The blue lights like coming down.
We got the blue lights. We've got who's the announcer? They've had him. He's been doing those intros with the seal. He's been like swimming. Jimmy Dykes, is that?
Oh yeah.
He'll be on the call. He'll be down there. The bracket here. Hold on, let me get it pulled up. Do we have a score on the North Carolina Northern Iowa?
I saw it started. It was like 27-25 early. The Panthers hanging with the heels.
All right, so we got that one going right now. Jeez, I'm trying to just find the bracket, and they're trying to sell me a trip to Atlantis. Give me just a second here. Let me get this.
Got to get down there for the second round games.
They're trying to get me down there. All right, so we got North Carolina versus Northern Iowa. That's going on right now. I think we'd fully expect North Carolina to advance there, but Northern Iowa, the Panthers, always a tricky opponent, especially in March and maybe this tournament format. But the next game, a team that we got wrong against Maryland. Kyle Neptune got the boys tuned up and destroyed Maryland, a Villanova team who I don't think we can have figured out at this point, versus a Texas Tech team that I also don't know too much about. Any thoughts on this one? It looks like the line is Villanova -3.5, Texas +4. And wow, they're expecting a defensive slugfest there, 128.5 on the over-under.
128. Wow. I saw it opened at like 131.5. So it's getting pummeled to the under. I wonder how much of that we've talked about it. Those low ceilings can really affect the shooters.
It's a new coach, right? Yeah. Grant McCaslin, first year at Texas Tech. Is
coming over from North Texas, had a great program there, moving to Texas Tech. This is going to be a good game just to see how these teams stack up. And I think it projects how they're going to perform in conference. Like, we have a lot of question marks on Texas Tech with the new coaching staff, but they're in the Big 12, and like Texas Tech is a proud basketball program, one of the best home court advantages in the country. So a win here would go a long way towards setting them up for conference play. On the other side of the coin, Villanova is definitely a tier below the UConn, Marquette, Creighton right now in the Big East. They're probably floating more with like the Providence crowd.
Xavier. I still think Xavier's solid.
Yeah. Villanova, Xavier, they're right there together. If I had a side, it'd probably be Villanova here. I'll keep riding with the Big East. I think Kyle Neptune's got to turn it around in year 2, and Villanova has the talent on the team. Pretty low number to cover. So if I decide to be Villanova.
Yeah, and I think you look here, Texas Tech's, they are playing great defense this year across the board. They're 8th right now in Ken Palm defensively. North Texas was always a good defensive team, and that's kind of been the culture of Texas Tech since they had that great run to the championship with Chris Beard. The 3-point attempt numbers are interesting here. Villanova's firing the 3. They're shooting it on 53% of their possessions. That's the 5th most in the country, but Texas Tech defends the 3 well. They're 4th in 3-point defensive percentage against the 3-pointer so far this year. But the Texas Tech offense is not good. They are last in the country in 3-point percentage to start the year. And Villanova surrenders almost the most threes in the country. So we have Villanova is going to be letting Texas Tech shoot tonight or this afternoon. That would be my assumption. And so far the shots are not falling for Texas Tech. I think Villanova is the more talented team here. I'm kind of afraid of this one because we got Villanova so wrong last time that I can't really trust them that much. But I expect Villanova to win this game. I think they will advance to play North Carolina. I'll take the minus 3.5. I don't love it of the bets so far today. That would be the one that maybe I'm least confident in, but I'll go on record. I'll take the Villanova minus 3.5 here. And whether they cover that or not, I do think that they advance to play North Carolina in the next round.
Yeah, definitely hoping they advance to see that North Carolina Villanova matchup. That just screams college basketball.
And a rematch of, was that 2018? Or no, 2016 championship. I was still in college. So yeah, that would have been 2016 dribble handoff championship game winner there. The next game, a team that I got eyes on, Michigan. And I said this after the game. I said this Michigan team, we don't know if they're actually good or not. St. John's is bad at basketball. Michigan looked good because they played against St. John's, who is not good. Michigan then loses a bye game fresh off of that to
Long Beach State.
Long Beach State. They surrendered 90. I mean, they got 94 points to Long Beach State. That's not acceptable. Memphis, they're 3-0. They've gotten the job done. They've really faced no competition so far. They won easily against Jackson State. Missouri's a reasonably solid basketball team. They beat them by 15 points, and they beat Alabama State easily. The first test of the year for Penny Hardaway's bunch. We talked about Penny Hardaway's squad in the preseason. A compelling matchup here, but Michigan minus 1.5, or Michigan plus 1.5, Memphis minus 1, over under in the 153 to 154 range. I think I lean Memphis here, but I don't honestly know enough about their squad to be overly confident in it.
Yeah, I like Memphis. I think a fun matchup is going to be Doug McDaniel of Michigan versus Javon Kinnerly. We've talked about Javon Kinnerly, well-traveled, 5-star at Villanova, didn't work out, moves to Alabama, plays that up-tempo style under Nate Oates. I'm not really sure why he transferred, but moves to Memphis, and then they've got that big Jordan Brown. They load up on transfers. I like Memphis. I like the talent that they have. And Michigan, they beat St. John's and MSG, and everyone anointed them as a top 25 team. Then they go out and they get the doors blown off them at home by Long Beach State. Give me Memphis in this one.
Yeah, and I'll join you there. Minus 1, that seems more than reasonable to me. In this one, I literally said after the St. John's game, I don't think Michigan's very good. I watched it with my own eyes. I think they're fine. They're an okay team. I think they got overly hyped by what took place there. Doug McDaniel did have a great game, but I'll take Javon Quinterly over Doug McDaniel every single night of the week, given that matchup. And then I just don't think Michigan really has any depth. Trey Jackson is really good, but other than that, I don't know where they're going to go. I'm also on the record that I don't fully trust Penny Hardaway as a coach. I think he's a fine coach, but in a must-win kind of tournament style game, I'm not totally sold on it. But I think Memphis is the better basketball team. I think Memphis has a better season overall. So yeah, give me Memphis here. Although I do think historically, or maybe I'm only thinking of one time, I can picture Michigan having success in Atlantis. I don't know what year it was, but there may be some positive vibes for them down there.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'm sure Michigan will have more fans traveling than Memphis for the tournament. So something to think about there.
And that is the third quarterfinal. And then the final one, Arkansas, who they also lost a game, I think, to a team
Jacksonville State, Mo Williams' team came in, knocked him off.
that is it was a UNC Greensboro took down
UNCG. Who did
Yes.
Jacksonville State beat? Missouri.
Let's see here. Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State. Maybe you're thinking of Jackson State?
Jackson State?
That's probably Jackson. Yeah, there you go. Jackson State. They beat Missouri.
Yeah, UNCG went into Fayetteville and knocked off the Razorbacks. That's right.
Yeah, and Arkansas had a couple of like mid 100 level KenPom wins before that. They beat Gardner Webb and Old Dominion, who aren't obviously powerhouses, but solid enough. They lose that game to UNC Greensboro. They now take on a Stanford team who also has a bad loss. They lost to Santa Clara. If you're Stanford, you can't be losing to Santa Clara in the little Bay Area matchup there. They've beaten Eastern. They've beaten Sacramento State. They've beaten Cal State Northridge. Arkansas is certainly the higher upside team here under Eric Musselman, one of the best coaches in the country. I don't think there's any question about that. But an interesting one in the sense that both teams haven't necessarily been flying out of the start. I do think this is supposed to be Jared Haas's. He's been middling at Stanford. He's had some mid 50 level KenPom teams. They're 66 right now, so kind of what you'd expect from them. The line, it's probably going to be a stay away game for me. It's Arkansas -6, Stanford +7, over under in the 152.5 to 154.5 range. If any, like Arkansas definitely is going to run and gun. Stanford, they've been in some high scoring games as well. I don't think I'm going to bet this one, but I would be really surprised if Arkansas can't get the job done.
Yeah, I like Arkansas on this one. I like -6. I like the must bus. Never too high, never too low in college basketball. I wonder what the line is if they don't drop that game to UNC Greensboro at home. Arkansas fans travel, and Stanford fans are non-existent, so Arkansas is definitely going to have the home court advantage on the neutral court. Give me Arkansas -6.
I like it. And like I said, I expect Arkansas to pick up this victory. So now let's just break down how we think the rest of the tournament goes. I saw there's futures up there. And actually, I think all that North Carolina was favored at like +350, but pretty much any of these teams that you think can win, you can get in between +350 and +800. So if you do want to play some futures bets at the Bad Boy Mowers Battle for Atlantis, we're projecting a semifinal of North Carolina against Villanova and Memphis against Arkansas. I think that's a pretty tasty Final Four here. Maybe not teams of the quality of the Maui Invitational, maybe not teams we're currently projecting to be national title contenders, but certainly some that can build on this and potentially be interesting come conference season. North Carolina versus Villanova. I think in the preview, I said I'm actually kind of high on North Carolina. I think they bounced back. I think I grabbed them about 30-1 for the national title just because I think there's this potential with this squad. We haven't seen a lot. Again, we just talked about Villanova. We're up in the air on what they could be. I think I'd probably lean North Carolina here, but I think this is a game where the line would probably be like around pick 'em.
Yeah, give me the Tar Heels. I think another thing is this Villanova Texas Tech game is going to be super physical today. So when you're looking at a team, I mean, is North Carolina rolling Northern Iowa yet?
I'm checking. I want to make sure we didn't get too high on them. Yeah, they're up 74-52. They're with 8 minutes to go. They're probably going to score 100. So the offense, when North Carolina's running and gunning and everybody's happy and everybody's getting touches, I think that was the issue last year, is that you can't run and gun if somebody are going to be selfish and they don't want to share the ball. So far, so good for North Carolina, in my opinion. And I think they're the best team in the top half of this bracket and potentially the best team in this tournament.
Yeah, I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough in tournaments is how one game affects the game the next day, just with the physicality. Like that Villanova Texas Tech game is going to be a slugfest. North Carolina's rolling Northern Iowa. They're going to sit their starters. I'll be on North Carolina as well if that's the matchup we get.
And then Memphis, Arkansas, which is an interesting one. Teams, I think they're about the same in KenPom. They're like 36 and 32. So on paper, a very coin flip-ish matchup. I don't even know. First of all, I don't even know if that's. I think the Michigan-Memphis game can obviously go either way. I'm pretty sure we're going to get Arkansas through against Stanford. And then maybe it is kind of to the point that you just said. Arkansas should take care of business against Stanford. Hopefully, or I don't see that as a super tough battle for them. It could end up being close, but Michigan-Memphis is going to be a war. And so for that reason, without having a lean either way based on the stats or the players, I might just take Arkansas there just because of the fact of what you just talked about.
Yeah, I like Arkansas. I do think a big piece of these tournaments is fans that travel and give you that edge. Like we've seen it with Purdue; they're really
Yeah.
well traveled in Maui, and then when they get out and they're running and they're scoring, like the energy and just everything swings in their favor. So give me Arkansas. I guess
And
if we can talk about the final, like I think Arkansas wins this tournament. I think they're the best team in the field. It is interesting that they're a lot lower on Ken Palm than their AP ranking. I think they dropped to like 19 after that UNCG loss. But yeah, I think Arkansas is the best team in the tournament.
yeah, and I'd probably go North Carolina if that does become the final, but it definitely a coin flip game, and the over under in that game would be in the 160s. Like that game, if we get Arkansas versus North Carolina, hit the over. There's probably not an over high enough for that one. They'll average shots every like 6 seconds. So
I've
over
got to
game.
see. I've got to see the rims in the Bad Boy Motors Battle for Atlantis first. It seems like they're going in for Northern Carolina or North Carolina. So maybe we got soft rims.
Historically, I think of there's some. I remember a game last year or 2 years ago. I think it was like Auburn against UConn, and it was in the
Oh
hundreds. So
yeah,
I I have in my mind that the Battle for Atlantis is an over gym, but that's definitely something we're going to be wanting to keep tabs on. If we get some trends there, we're going to want to hop on those in the next
do
round.
you think that they just rolled the same hoops out? They like store them and then roll them out for 1 week a year?
You would think so. I mean, they play at the Imperial Arena. I don't think there's a lot of games being played at the Imperial Arena. Correct me if I'm wrong. At the Atlantis Resort there in the Bahamas. So I assume we get the same baskets every year, which is usually what happens at the Lahaina Center. Those things have been there forever.
Yep.
We get who won the Hawaii game last night? By the way, let's see.
Oh, the
Yeah, what was the
bonus
score?
fifth game.
Where the balls was it was 131 total in that one. So another pretty low scoring
Another
game.
under. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 141.5. So well under.
Yeah, so Hawaii gets the job done, but I almost feel bad for Hawaii. They have to play on those rims every single
Yeah.
day of the year. So that's actually something we'll be keeping tabs on, the Hawaii unders this year at home
Hawaii
games for
unders.
Hawaii. Keep tabs on those. One other set of games that's kicking off here is over at the Barclays Center, back at our old stomping grounds from Friday. The first game should be Baylor. Baylor's playing somebody. Oh, Oregon State. They're playing your Beavers. That's a game that Baylor should take care of business.
What's the spread there? Like 20?
It's gonna be pretty
20,
big.
22 and a half.
15 and a half.
Baylor.
Baylor plays Oregon State. Baylor should take care of business there. But an interesting one in the other semifinal. It is Florida, who's number 35 in Ken Palm, and they are 3-1 on the year. They lost to Virginia. I'm upset with Virginia. I'm upset with Mike Popper. I'm on a nice 8-2 streak, but one of those losses is Virginia. So that does concern me that Florida lost to them, because that team didn't look very good to me against Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Mike. And then Pittsburgh, under Jeff Capel, former bagman at Duke. This might be the best team that he's had at Pittsburgh. They are 4-0. They are scoring points. They are 35th offensively. They've scored over 86 every game. The line here between Florida and Pittsburgh is Florida -4.5, Pittsburgh +5.5, and over under of 156.5 to 157.5. Any thoughts about that one over at the Barclays Center? The shots were falling at Barclays. I think we had what I'd consider average rims for that one.
Yeah, shots were falling at Barclays. Notre Dame, Oklahoma State doesn't count because those are two atrocious offenses, but Auburn was definitely hitting their shots. I don't have a side in this one. I do. Jeff Capel's done a good job at Pittsburgh, kind of revitalizing that program. Jamie Dixon had success there. A bit of an interesting move when he moves to TCU. Pittsburgh was down. Jeff Capel, when he got there, they were not good. But he's brought in some talent. And yeah, you mentioned it, former bagman from Duke. He's the recruiter. I think that's a fun matchup. Don't be surprised if Pittsburgh knocks off the Gators.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Pittsburgh's played nobody this year, to be fair. We really don't know too much about them, but the roster's interesting enough. Ken Palm likes them. They're 40th in Ken Palm. Like I said, Florida lost to Virginia, and I'm not happy with Virginia after what I saw against Wisconsin. So that they did beat Florida State easily. In Florida State, we talked about the Colorado-Florida State game last night. Florida State wins that one in overtime. Disappointment for Tad Boyle. A good sign of maybe Leonard Hamilton rebuilding things down there. But yeah, it +5.5. Again, this isn't a high conviction play because I could tell you almost nothing about Pittsburgh. But give me Pittsburgh +5.5. They're 4th in the country in points this year. Maybe it's an 8-point game at the end and they're able to get a few buckets. So yeah, And then the money line plus 180 if looking for an upset there.
Sprinkle that.
Sprinkle the money line for Pittsburgh. I'll mark down and place a bet on the plus 5.5 there. So I've got a variety of games. I've of the 6 games I bet, all the lines are 5.5 or less. So hopefully some competitive ball games that I've got some action on today. Coming into the day 8-2. So even if we go 0-6, we're going to end the first 3 days of Feast Week at 500. Hopefully that doesn't take place. Hunter, another great day of basketball ahead of us. It's been a great week so far. Things kind of honestly die out after this. Like we'll have the battle for Atlantis, and there's going to be some other games, but comes a little bit more football Feast Week once Thursday hits.
Yep, definitely looking ahead to football games this weekend. Rivalry week should be good. See if our Huskies can't move up to 3-2 with the win over the Cougs, and then Michigan or Ohio State dropping.
Who's both from so for me in the Ohio State Michigan game, I'm rooting for Ohio State because I feel like Michigan loses. I think Michigan is completely out of the conversation in the playoff. But if Ohio State loses, I'm afraid of some sort of committee nonsense where Ohio State would still be in the picture. So for me, I think I want Ohio State to win. How about you?
Yeah, I want Ohio State to win. Although I do think it's hilarious, like this Michigan storyline and like the players wearing like the free Harbaugh shirts, because like everyone that's a part of Michigan knows how they were cheating. So it's just like, I mean, I don't know.
Playing the victim when you were the ones who committed like nothing. You're not a victim. Nothing has happened to you. It was at the MSG. They were chanting for Jim Harbaugh during the game.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think like you've seen so much silence around the country about it because like coaches steal signs. It's a well-known thing, like scouting, stealing signs. It's a thing. Michigan taking it to the nth degree. I don't know. It feels kind of like baseball to me. Like it kind of feels like an Astro situation where it's like you can steal signs, but you have to do it like the right way. It's like the unwritten rules.
And when it all came out, like I've never thought that Michigan should be like harshly punished for the same reasons you're saying. Like everybody does it. You just happen to be the ones who got caught doing it. So it's not even like I think Michigan should be in trouble. I'm just at this point, I hate them more because of the reaction to the whole thing of like acting like, how could anybody ever get mad at us for this? It's like, well, I mean, you did this to yourself. So the coach cried. What really pushed me over the edge of being against Michigan in this debacle, because I didn't really care. The coach crying on the field after the Penn State game I was like, come on, guys, what are we doing out here?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we'll have eyes on the action here. It's going to get started in about 30 minutes. So we've got some time to get the bets in, get settled, and a big day of basketball continues. Hunter, have a great Thanksgiving. It's been a great week, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. Have a great Thanksgiving. See ya.